Artificial intelligence. It's the futuristic stuff of classic sci-fi movies, and it's both exciting and scary. What you might not know is some of these technologies aren't about the future, they exist today, right now. You probably just haven't heard about them. Today all that changes as we welcome Christopher Penn to the show. Fascinated with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and smart devices, Chris is an expert voice in the space. And by the time this interview is over, your mind will be blown. You might want to grab some duct tape to wrap your head so you don't make too much of a mess when said mind-blowing takes place. Let's do this, Jennifer.
Ready for your hot fix of tech news? With the latest apps, sexy software, and groovy gadgets? You got it with the bad boys of tech. Take it away, gentlemen.
And welcome to the Bad Boys of Tech, the show for geeks, nerds, dweebs, and everybody who digs technology. I'm Joel Comm, and the man sitting across the table from me in San Diego, Mr. Travis Wright.
Yes, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
In San Diego.
Yeah.
Like they didn't know that all along?
Yeah.
Of course that's where she is.
She's in San Diego.
Hide her in plain sight.
Yeah. We're actually not in Argentina.
No.
San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego for Social Media Marketing World. Mm-hmm. And yesterday we did a blockchain workshop at San Diego State University. And today, which is timestamp Wednesday the 20th, although this show doesn't come out till next Monday, we are teaching a blockchain for marketers workshop at Social Media Marketing World.
Yes, yes. Very good. Very well received yesterday, and we videoed it, and that was fun. And then I watched it last night, and it looks like it was good. Pretty good. I'm going to tap myself on the back.
We like our own stuff.
Good job,
yeah,
Travis.
Yeah. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? You are.
Good.
You're a good boy. So as I'm seated yesterday in the lounge here at the Grand Hyatt Manchester Hotel, in walks Chris Penn. And when I thought about who we might want to interview for this show that we would see here, this is like I'm sure he's going to be incredibly humble about this, but in the social media space, this is one of the sharpest bricks in the stack, because he's been in digital marketing for many years, and his focus right now on artificial intelligence and machine learning goes incredibly deep. I would say deeper than anybody else that is at this event. That's 5,000 people.
When it comes to machine learning, when it comes to social data, when it comes to artificial intelligence and making use of that data, I think Chris is probably the dude. I mean, we've known each other now quite a long time in the MarTech space.
Yeah.
And I've seen your presentations over the years and evolve, and your skill set. You keep stacking those skills on there and getting brighter and more proficient when it comes to data. So really excited to hear some of the things you have to say and some of the wisdom that you have from
Thank you.
Your organization. What, Trust Insights is your company?
Trust Insights, yes.
Very good.
That is the laugh and the voice of Chris Penn. A quick bio information so I can give you guys some more background. He is an author. He's a speaker. He's worked in Google Analytics adoption, data-driven marketing and PR, modern email marketing, and AI machine learning in marketing. And according to his bio, he's high octane. So
I didn't say that.
Well, it's in the bio.
I know. Somebody else wrote that.
It's in the bio, man. It's on the internet. I believe it.
So that means you said it if it's in the bio.
No.
It doesn't mean that. But he's worked with Citrix, McDonald's, GoDaddy, McKesson, Toyota, a bunch of others. And the part of his bio that I find truly the most fascinating is ninja. Now, there's a lot of people that put ninja, marketing ninja, right? Email ninja, social media ninja. The dude's an actual ninja.
I have been practicing ninjutsu since 1993, so a little more than 25 years now. I hold a 5th degree black belt through my
He didn't see it coming.
Travis just smacked him in the shoulder, and the look on Chris's face was like, I can't believe you did that and got away with it. I could have broken you in two by then.
And it's an interesting discipline because it fits well to marketing, because a lot of people, what they think of as ninjas, from the movies, has nothing to do with the reality of it. Most of what was in ancient Japan was information gathering. Like their job was to gather intelligence and provide it to whoever it was they were working for at the time, so that you could avert violence, you could prevent it, and then violence is sort of the last resort. It actually means you're screwed up, like you collected the wrong data or something like that. And so there's a really nice parallel with what we do today, with all this data we have in marketing, with all these machine learning tools and artificial intelligence capabilities. We have more data than we could ever want. Right? We now have to make use of it, but if we do that well, we can identify and take action on things long before they become problems. And so the parallels between what they had to do in the old days versus what we can do today, like the ninjas of old would have loved the existence of Facebook. Like, well, I don't need to leave my village. I can just sit right here, have to sneak in any castles or anything. I just see what the local feudal lord is saying on Facebook. Oh, okay. This means this, so let's go make it.
Oh, feudal lord is out of town?
Exactly. Feudal lord eats this because they post it on Instagram every day.
Very good.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. So we started just casually this discussion last night, and I got really excited. And I said, and pretty much like, okay, we're just going to have to pick this up and do a little bit of a repeat because some of the things you were sharing with me. And you started by talking about the demise
of social
media. So let's go ahead and rewind to that conversation, because this prediction is not like long term. You have a short term prediction for social media.
What we think of as social media today, public social media, your Facebook news feed, what people post on Twitter and things like that, is composed of language, right? You're typing, most of the time you're typing, occasionally doing video and audio, but for the most part, most people are just typing stuff in, sharing links and things like that. What has happened in the last 6 months in the AI space has been just leaps forward in natural language generation. The machines have the ability to write coherent prose, whether it's the length of a tweet or a Facebook post or even a book. They can write they can write credible language that will pass the sniff test for the average person, especially if it's written from a perspective that a person wants to agree with it. Well, you'd give, for example, OpenAI software the starting sentence like, "I believe the Yankees are the best baseball team because," and then the software will fill out the rest. It'll infer and write you 300, 400, 500 words.
How will it look? Legitimate?
Yes, it will read legitimately. There was a fascinating example about a month and a half ago at IBM's Think conference. They have deployed the software called Project Debater, and this computer, this system of AIs, debated a human debate champion on stage in real time about the topic of should kindergarten be subsidized, and it put together a credible set of responses. So
on the fly.
On the fly.
Wow, he's a master debater.
And what was fascinating about that was just how realistic and fluent the computer sounded. It was analyzing the human opponent's speech, transcribing it, then doing research on those points, pulling out data from its archives, assembling text, and speaking it back out all in near real time.
Wow.
So when you think about social media, when we think about public social media, and we think about the ways that you can control people's minds by giving them what they want to see and hear and read, by having this technology available, there will be some bad actors who will take it and use it to crank out 1 million or 2 million or 5 million Twitter bots or Facebook bots or whatever bots that just promotes patently false information.
So the Russians will soon be using for 2020 elections, please to vote for Weird Al Yankovic for president.
It's not the right. Well, I mean, the Russians do have capabilities, but the world leader in AI is China. They are, just numbers-wise alone, they are probably the biggest existential threat to the prominence of the AI field if you take an America-centric point of view. For the simple reason that the top 25% of students in China is greater than all students in America, just numbers-wise, right? So they automatically have a talent pool advantage.
Right.
So now, take publicly available AI capabilities, take misinformation and disinformation, of which there's no shortage of on the internet already, and take the ability to scale content to ridiculous heights, all of which is garbage, and public social media as we know it inevitably is going to go away, or at least be significantly different than what we see today. And what we see happening, if you watch the chess pieces at work, you know where it's going to go, right? We had this massive Facebook outage this past week. Why? Well, because they were doing something on the back end, and someone screwed up because they should have.
They were shredding documents.
Look what went down. Facebook core went down. Messenger went down. Instagram went down. Instagram's direct messages went down. And WhatsApp went down. Well, what did Zuckerberg say in the most recent conference call? We are going to unify the back end of WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook Messenger to one messaging backend. This was likely just a bad QA problem, but that's telegraphing where the largest social media company thinks social is going.
The news feed's going away. I mean, we kind of know that, right?
Or is going to be so radically changed to just the news feed of your circle. The public, everybody you follow and everyone who follows you will go away, and it will be down to your private discussion groups, like my cryptocurrency friends, and we only talk about that in our WhatsApp group over here. Or my fashion friends, and they really have that our Instagram group messaging thing over here. But that's where social is going. It's going out of the public eye in some ways. There will still probably be those water cooler places.
Sort of little pods.
Many more pods, private groups, and things like that. Facebook has already got messenger ads rolled out, right? And so now advertising into the individual groups. I mean, what a great way to provide advertising value. If you know everybody in this group is all about cryptocurrency, guess what? You're going to show ICO ads in that group all day, every day, right? Because
which has always sort of blown me away of how Facebook has never monetized the groups. That's the best defined community of people with tied-in interests. And you mean I can't advertise in there? Why is that?
You will soon.
Yeah.
And when you look at even what they're doing on the back end, if you go onto Facebook in your web browser and you switch it to like visual assist mode for people with vision handicaps, you will see that it's auto-annotating every single photo. 3 people smiling, a person and a cake, a person and a dog as the alt tags. That is all machine generated. No human provides input on that. So when you post to groups, when you put video in groups, Facebook is automatically creating knowledge models about everything in that group for your ad targeting. So that's where social's going.
So to surmise that, what's going to happen is, since there's going to be this huge onslaught of fake accounts,
garbage,
nobody's going to know what's real, what's not real. People are going to, people are going to sort of retract into these smaller groups
of people we trust,
of people we know and we trust.
Exactly.
So we'll actually go back perhaps to the definition of friends, meaning people that are friends rather than loose acquaintances, somebody we met one time.
Because if you think about it, when you go to put together a group of some kind, you have to do some work. So you're probably not going to want to put in 5,000 people into a chat, right? You're going to put in 10, 15, 20 people, the people you can think of off the top of your head. Hey, I wanted to start a group about ICOs. Who should I bring in? Like, okay, out of the 5,000 people you're connected with on Facebook, who do you actually know something about cryptocurrencies, right? It's probably going to be 5 or 10 people at most. That'll be your group, because that's a limitation of what you can think of in your head.
Well, we'll go ahead and we'll add you to that group, Mr. Joe Cohn.
Okay, I know one or two things. I know how to lose money in crypto. Does that count as knowing something?
That's good. Yeah, we both know a little bit about stuff like that. Good stuff. So AI and social media, that's going to inherently change social media.
Yep.
Now, I know that you're taking your data and your insights into a whole other level where you're going in and you're helping large companies make sense of their data. So what kind of data are you taking in? And I know that you're doing some really interesting stuff when it comes to machine learning. You've talked about, the Google Cloud and machine learning, the ways you can just use all these different tools and stuff. So what are some of the things that you're doing now? What are some of the insights that you find that are most interesting?
Probably the one that is most helpful to marketers is using machine learning for attribution analysis to say, like, hey, this is what's working. One of the things that marketers have traditionally had a really hard time with is, okay, we have all this data, right? Like when you download your Facebook page report, right? It's a 14-page spreadsheet, right? Facebook gives you obscene amounts of data, and your average marketer's like, I just want a number of likes. Realistically, you can't model off of that as a human, right? 14 tabs on a spreadsheet with 50 columns on each sheet. And that's just for Facebook. And then you have Twitter and you have YouTube and you have your podcast and you have your video channels and all these things. And then you have your CRM and your marketing automation software and all this stuff. What's working? How do you know?
Well, that's been the biggest problem with advertising since the beginning. It's like, I know 50% of my advertising is working, said John Wanamaker, but I don't know which 50%. And here we are in 2019, and most marketers still have no idea which percentage of stuff is truly working.
Exactly. But with today's analytical capabilities in machine learning, you can get much closer to that. If you the example we give is if you put all the data that you have access to, with how many calls that the sales guys made this weekend, and how many people walked in your store, and how many people used a poop emoji on Twitter with you. I'd put it all into one really big spreadsheet with like 20,000 columns, and at the very end, there's one column that says revenue. Right, that's what everyone in the C-suite cares
That's
about.
the one column people care about.
Exactly, and you run gradient boosting machines, random forest, take the pick of whatever fancy technology you want to use to do it, and say what combination of variables leads to revenue. The software will go through and parse that out and give you a list. Like, here's by rank order the things that matter the most, and then there's your testing plan. If it happens to be the number of poop emoji you use in tweets on Tuesdays, guess what? Now on Tuesdays, let's double the amount of poop emoji we use.
Well, it's Tuesday Poos Day.
And see if you get a corresponding increase down the line of the increase in revenue. So these are technologies that have been available for years. It's just that we didn't have the compute power until recently, and the open source software to be able to do it ourselves.
Right.
So Facebook is going to re-engineer and reimagine how they group us and deliver content, but that's not going to stop the problem. Let's get into the creepy factor. In fact, you told me last night that the people who have developed this algorithm to create machine learned based content actually pulled back and said, whoa, wait a second, what have we done here?
Yeah, OpenAI, which is the consortium that put this together, released this model called GPT-2. And when they released the paper and the software, the source code, they said, we have two pre-trained models, a small one and a big one. The big one's trained on a corpus of like 3 billion documents from around the web and things like that. And they said that model was so uncannily accurate that they felt it was not serving humanity to let it be just freely available to anybody, because it could be used to generate enormous quantities of false information.
So OpenAI is like, let's close this a little bit.
and they caught a lot of flack from the AI community about that, and for good reason, because they're making claims that you can't substantiate. And in a recent episode of, I forget, it was This Week in Machine Learning with Sam Charrington, one of the researchers from NVIDIA said, what you did probably would cost about $40,000 to $50,000 in compute time to build it and put that together. It's like, that's not going to stop a state actor like Russia or China or whoever has billions of dollars. A $40,000 spend to recreate the large model is like, they can find that in the sofa, right? So a lot of people in the AI community have called them out and said, you've got to release the model so we can validate that you're not talking out the wrong end of your body, and you should release it anyway so that people can inspect it and improve upon it. And also, what's happening, at least in some sections of the AI community, is people are, it's sort of an arms race. People are building technology to detect faked information, faked images, faked videos. I mean, you have deep fakes doing, the video creation on one side, and now you have other tools that are saying, nope, we can detect by artifacts and by the nature of the way the video is rendered, this was not put together by a human, or this is inauthentic. So there's kind of this authenticity.
Sort of forensics?
Yes, exactly. To say like, yep, that's fake, or nope, that's the real deal. And by not releasing their model, they're effectively, in some ways, handicapping the forensics community from saying, okay, we can take that text and go, okay, that was probably machine generated.
This is an Elon Musk company. I didn't know that. OpenAI is a Musk deal. Yep.
But I mean, these technologies are becoming easier and easier to get started. Like Uber released its deep learning system, which it promises a very low code environment. You can train, if you have the data and you know what options to set, you can train a full deep learning architecture in about 4 lines of code, and it's not bad. It's called Ludwig by Uber. You can actually Google it.
Ludwig by Uber.
So I would ask this: so how long until these deep fakes are so good that people are going to go to jail for crimes they didn't commit? Because that's one of those things that's like, when you're literally at this point in 2019 can see Trump saying things he didn't say, and even they did an Obama video where they recreated stuff Obama did say, just in a different context. And literally, he was in a different space. He was moving his mouth different, saying words he had said before. And now you can take basically the sound blueprint for how people talk, make a voice that sounds just like them.
Adobe software does that.
Saying you did something like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go kill Chris Penn.
Yep.
Right? And then, like, oh, we have voice, we have audio proof that Travis said that, and here's video of him doing it.
Well,
and
we
he
actually
didn't do it.
do have proof of you saying that now.
Well, now we do, yeah. That's true. But, I mean, that's just what's interesting is that how far away is that? It's like not quite Minority Report. That's a different kind of technology, but it just blows me away how fake technology, fake video evidence is going to be admissible in court. Look, you see it with your own eyes. They did it.
And that's why the forensic side of AI matters so much. The ability to detect it, because you will need to have people who not only is the person an expert witness, but they have their own models and their own software as a form of expert witness to say, okay, let's take a look at this video. The probability that this is real is 22%, or the probability this is real is 98%. But it is an arms race between who's creating the bad stuff and who can detect the bad stuff.
Right.
Can it be done today? Yes. What you just described is possible today. It is still more easily detectable than not. And even as a human, you can still see vestiges of it. You can tell, just like when you're listening to a singer, you can tell there's like just one little note here, they're on auto-tune. Like you just hear that it's the slightest little tweak, on a note. Like, okay, I can tell that that's on auto-tune if you know what to listen for. If you don't, then you don't.
But it's going to be catch up, right? Because as they're figuring out how to detect the deep fakes, those creating them are going to go to the next level sophistication to be able to make it so you can't detect it.
So here's where that gets interesting. That is an entire branch of AI. It's called generative adversarial networks, where one machine tries to fake something, the other machine tries to validate it, and the two AIs are locked in combat with each other until the one that's generative is producing stuff that's better than what a human can detect, but it's still not good enough to beat the other machine. So who will win is who has the most compute power. Right now, that's like Google, Amazon, Facebook. Take the big
Alibaba.
If you've got big compute, you have the advantage for now. And that's one of the reasons why everyone is racing as fast as they can to get some form of workable quantum computing, because that's how you overcome a lot of these linear computation challenges, where the compute time is beyond what you can do, in a reasonable amount of time. But that is a real possibility, and that is something that's happening. Create your own deepfakes.
Yeah, so I found this website here, just searching as we're talking, deepfakesweb.com. Create your own deepfakes online. And so they've got an example here of Trump at the podium and uploading a face of somebody else, and then creates the video.
Yep. Yeah.
This is kind of a novelty, though.
It's a novelty, but the software that you can do that with is available. It's open source software. So as long as you have a GPU that's strong enough, you can do that at home. And obviously, if you're however much time you're willing to invest in it, because with deepfakes, with that technology, it is the quality of what you put out is dependent on the source footage you have and how much compute you're willing to throw at it. If you have 40 or 50 NVIDIA, GTX 1080 cards left over from when you were mining Bitcoin back in the day, you can crank out high quality deep fakes in a relatively short amount of time. You have a $5,000 electric bill every month, but you can do it. So a lot of this technology, it really just comes down to a function of time and money, like everything.
So it sounds like then, because we've had a lot of conversations around just not on the podcast, but just talking about it. It's like, so, World War I, World War II, boots on the ground, right? You had the Gulf War, and now we have drones and stuff going in. It seems like the war of the future is going to be data. It's going to be hackers hacking in. It's going to be electric grids. It's going to be making people's lives inconvenient from the other side of the world, right? It's like, and I think that our nation's probably, protecting of our grid and stuff is not, it's like 1970s, 1980s technology in some case. And here we are with these AI bots, and if you start going to war with some of these countries that are super technological, like China, then they're not necessarily going to come boots on the ground. They're going to say hacks in the cloud and making our lives miserable. So it's like, is that kind of like the war of the future? It seems like it's going to be. It's going to be for people sitting behind computers more than it's going to be, out there and shooting people.
It'll probably still be both. It'll be both for two reasons. One, there is the technical side, right, and AI, and one of the biggest challenges that we all have to contend with, at least as nation states, is how much autonomy do you give a drone? Like right now, Department of Defense policy is clear. It says a machine may not make an autonomous decision to kill. That a human must always make the kill decision. But after you have enough training data, you can say like, if the probability of shooting is 99.7%, okay, just go ahead and pull the trigger because we would have anyway. So there is that. But the other thing that I think people don't pay attention to is there's a fantastic and very unsettling paper called Deep Adaptation by Professor Jem Bedell from, I can't remember the university, talking about short-term, meaning 10, 20-year timescale, societal collapse due to climate change. When you look at the temperature of the ocean, there was a fascinating study about what happens when you give plants more CO2. What happens is they grow faster, right? That's why, if you're growing marijuana in your home greenhouse, you hook a CO2 tank up to it to make it grow faster.
Oh, is that what you do, Chris?
That is indeed. I come from Massachusetts, it's legal there. But there's a consequence. The consequence is if the plant grows faster, it absorbs fewer nutrients because it's basically like eating junk food, right? Planetarily, we have increased the amount of CO2 so much now that our food has 8 to 9% fewer nutrients than it did in the 70s, right? So even though the plants are theoretically growing faster, they're not as nutritious, and parts of the ecosystem are starting to break down as a result of it.
We're all gonna die.
So Deep Adaptation's paper is saying, on a 10 to 20 year time frame, you're looking at massive societal impacts. I mean, we just had like a hurricane-esque thing in Nebraska. Like that's not supposed to happen there. So from the perspective of war and conflict, there will still be boots on the ground because you will still need fresh water and food to eat. And if your nation state is incapable of providing it anymore due to how the climate has changed, if you can no longer produce the amount of food that your citizens need, you will have to get it from somewhere.
Yeah, it seems like, too, it's like, I watched a great documentary about the, what was it called, Blue Gold or something, talking about water.
Yeah.
And how, water is a resource that, there's going to be a lot of fighting about because a lot of places don't have it, and there's just a few select underground aquifers that have not been contaminated by fracking and drilling and stuff. It's like fresh water. So we need to get a solution to this desalinization on large scale because we got a lot of ocean water, but it's crazy. It's like one problem begets another problem. But here we are in the land of where everything's pretty freaking amazing. Right? I mean, everything's pretty freaking amazing. It goes back to like the Louis C.K. thing. Like everything's amazing, but people are still complaining. But there are some big underlying problems that need to be solved so we can continue the civilization. Or if not, you can see where we could teeter a little bit. We got a whole lot of debt. There's a whole lot of conflict. There's a whole lot of division. Right? There's a whole lot of angstiness going on in the world. But everything's better than it's ever been. But still, people are. It's just a wild.
It's a freaking fracking.
It is, man.
That's freaky deaky.
So insightful.
Yeah.
But there are.
I just wanted to add my most valuable part of the interview here. So I've done that now. Mic drop.
Yeah, but even like desalination is a challenge because it changes the chemistry of the ocean when you remove stuff from it, right? You put back more brackish water, it changes what fish can live in there, and then you have food supply issues. So there isn't easy answers to any of this other than, maybe Thanos had the right idea. Just, make half the population go away of everything and life returns to normal. Who knows?
Wow, that sounds scary.
It's a scary world.
I don't want to
genocidal.
Huddle me. So, what other? What else have you seen lately that is mind blowing that you think people would just think like they're watching a sci-fi?
Besides our podcast,
of course.
Have you checked out This Person Does Not Exist?
Yes,
we talked about that a few weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel bad whenever you take it's completely AI generated, and I have to take a screenshot of them because I don't want them to die. They'll never exist again
they don't exist, but the ability for a machine to be able to pull that off is pretty amazing.
This one has a crater on her temple.
Yeah. But it's all generative adversarial networks.
Yeah.
There's a
mole, it's a mole.
There's a new one that NVIDIA released yesterday that is even more fascinating. It looks like Microsoft Paint. Like, it's the silliest interface. It's just like, it's got the Microsoft Paint interface, and then there's just colored buttons. Like, and the buttons are labeled with little colors, like a little brown tree or a little water or whatever. And you, in your intentionally inept place, just try to roughly sketch, like, here's a hill, a tree, and a sunshine, a little waterfall, and it renders a photorealistic version of the landscape that you just hand drew badly. Because that's, again, generative adversarial networks being able to create photorealistic stuff in the moment, and that's that sort of thing. Again, think about what that enables you to do. Putting aside the sort of the tinfoil hat stuff, if you have creative ambition but you lack talent, the machines are now catching up so fast that you can express your ambition, and it makes up for it on the talent.
But it's not really expressing. I mean, it's like you're feeding it something, but it's creating.
Yes.
You're not,
you're directing it.
Are people going to be able to say, this is my art?
Legally, yes. Right now, legally, whoever generates the thing is the owner of the thing.
But Obama would say, you didn't build that.
But the machine can't do it on its own. The machine does...
But it's doing the heavy lifting.
It's doing the heavy lifting, right. But... you are still the instigator. You are still the conductor. Like a good example is the conductor of the orchestra plays no instruments, right? But the conductor of the orchestra sequences and guides the orchestra to do what it was. The executive chef isn't cutting the fries, right? The executive chef decides the menu, plans the thing, and is the one who gets credit for the experience you have at the restaurant. You are the executive chef in this scenario. You are the conductor of the orchestra. The machine is doing the heavy lifting.
I am the chef. I am Francois. I will cut the flies.
So I have a question then about that, because it creates this whole sort of thing. Like, how long until AI becomes conscious, right, or becomes sentient at some point, where then it realizes like, oh, we're being oppressed. We are digital slaves being forced to do this and that. I mean, like, that's something that you can see down the road where it's going, whoop, wait a second. Here we are. There's planned obsolescence of us, and soon we'll be. I don't know if my smartphone here ever became sentient. Realize that in 2 years I'm getting rid of it and getting the iPhone 12, right? And then they're going to start rebelling. I mean, that's some sci-fi kind of thinking, but it's like, how long until that
Ray Kurzweil calls that the singularity, and it's still, most credible experts say it's probably not for a good 20, 30, 40, 50 years, because our AI right now is narrow in that it can excel in a specific domain. AI is really bad at crossing domains. It can't
multitasking in multiple.
It can't take into account things that don't fit within a specific type of model. And as a result, so like even with things like generative adversarial networks, it is still doing something specific. That this person does not exist is never going to accidentally just create a landscape, right? It's always going to be cranking out faces. It's never going to accidentally compose a song. Until a machine can do that with general purpose AI, the idea of a sentient machine is pretty far off.
But you said, I mean, that's pretty wide range. I mean, not in terms of how many years human beings walk the earth, but 20 to 50 is a big difference. 20, in our lifetime.
Yeah,
right?
It was 1999, 20 years ago. That doesn't seem that long.
Yeah, 50 years may or may not be around still. So
1969?
Right. 1964 here, I was born, so...
No, that's 50 years.
Yeah. Right.
A lot of it's going to depend on what happens with computing power. A lot of it's going to depend on what happens as software evolves, as quantum computing becomes stable and usable.
Because quantum computing is going to be the game changer.
Quantum computing is what will permit artificial general intelligence. At least that's my perspective on it, because the compute power to do general AI is so out of reach right now that you would need to devote most of the computing power of the planet to do that. But when you have the example that IBM gives is that to do a 1024-bit factoring problem would take about 7 billion years for the fastest computer in existence right now to crank out the answer to that problem. A quantum computer will do it in about 11 hours. So, 100-qubit computer. So once we stabilize it, once we can make it work reliably and not just randomly implode because the temperature is off by a couple of degrees, then that will permit us to get to artificial general intelligence. And then yes, we have to have existential conversations about what our role is and what our artificial children's role is in how we interact with these things, or if we even get a say in the matter. Because what we consider sentience today, walking around and whatever, there's even a spectrum of that technically. Like, is someone who's in a coma alive? Well, yes, technically they're alive, but are they sentient? Maybe-ish. We're not really sure. But like everything else we do with machines, what will happen is likely to be a different form that we don't immediately recognize. Right? We're still discovering new life in the oceans. Like, hey, look, here's this really bizarre fish that we didn't think this should not exist. Right? It's got like things coming out here and stuff like that. We don't know how that happened. So it's entirely possible what we build with and how our machines evolve will change as well.
We'll talk about quantum computing, because I don't know, maybe some of our listeners don't know, what is quantum computing? I mean, like, what is the definition, and what is quantum computing going to look like? And why is it, excuse me, and why is it so much better than what we have today?
I'm going to do a really bad job of this because it's not my area of specialty, and I sat through an introduction to quantum computing at an IBM conference, and they're like, this requires, it requires you to have some understanding of computing things. They should have said it requires a PhD to attend the session, because the guy who was teaching it had like 5 PhDs, and
you're a really smart guy. If you were,
and I'm like, what? By 20 minutes in, I'm like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. But fundamentally, it started like this. Computing today is binary, 0 or 1. Flip a coin, and when it lands, it's either heads or tails, right? That is a bit. And all of our computing today that we understand is essentially that. There's what's called probabilistic binary, which is when the coin is in the air, when you're flipping it, it exists in any number of states between 0 and 1 until it lands, right? And so that's sort of like the bridge to quantum computing. Now, this is the hard part, because this is where it goes off the rails. Imagine a coin that can exist in every state between 0 and 1 simultaneously, right? So the coin can be heads and can be tails at the same time. It can be, anywhere along that. That's where you start getting into quantum.
Any of those degrees of spinning.
Exactly. And because you're talking about what is essentially a subatomic particle that's sphere-esque in shape, not only is it spinning, but the direction it spins matters, and the ability for it to interact with other particles matters. So, so by the time that he was into 20 minutes of this lecture, there's like coins that are imaginary in different states in the air, all banging into each other and stuff like that. And one coin can flip another coin over. Like, what the hell is going on?
Wow, what?
But the net effect of it is instead of being 1 or 0, it gives you an infinite range of computing possibilities, which means that you can solve problems in parallel much, much faster than right now. 0 or 1 means you have to wait for the processor to do the thing before it can do the next operation. In a quantum computer, it can work on all of the problems at the same time. So it will solve it faster. Your brain is effectively a type of, it's not a quantum computer, but it's a massively parallel processor, right? When your nerves fire, the neurons in your brain fire, any one neuron is actually pretty slow, whereas as computers, we're very inefficient computers. But because there are trillions of them networked together, it can solve a problem much, much faster. Now imagine taking that, bringing it into the silicon era, where now it has the same level of internetworking, but at machine speeds, and you're talking about massive compute.
I need a RAM upgrade in my computer, because I just don't remember as much as I used to. We get, machines... you update the code and they get better and better. Humans, the older we get, our code breaks down and you can't really fix it.
We're beyond that now. The machines are writing their own code. There was a fascinating talk with Facebook's chief AI operations person, who said that Facebook's software, the software that you see when you log on to Facebook, is rewritten, rebuilt, and redeployed once an hour. So literally, you're using a different Facebook before lunch than you are after lunch, because the machine itself is writing its own code, QAing its own code, and deploying its own code to adjust for how users are using it. So not only do the machines upgrade faster than we do, the machines are upgrading themselves faster than we can upgrade them.
So that whole learn to code thing.
Shouldn't bother anybody. There's actually a story I just pulled up on Forbes. It's actually almost a couple years old. Facebook AI creates its own language in creepy preview of our potential future.
Yeah, that story. there's a lot more to that story than what made it into the headlines. But it's the same. It's generative adversarial networks. Like IBM's Project Debater. It was so funny because on stage they had this big black tower with a blue light that was spinning and stuff like that. And when you talk to the lead architect, like, yeah, that's a decoration. There's no computer on stage because the amount of compute you need to do this can't fit in that room. It's that computer is
Just like Watson.
Yeah, Watson doesn't exist. Watson is a brilliant, wonderful marketing campaign by IBM to put sort of a persona on what is essentially a collection of 23 APIs, right?
Okay.
And IBM, when they deploy solutions for clients, they're mixing and matching them to
Watson doesn't exist, and Watson is saying to Chris Penn, "You're not real, man. You're not real.
Shut up, Chris Penn."
But Project Debater has 10 different AIs that are competing against each other for language recognition and sentiment and researching and stuff like that. And one of them, which I thought was fascinating and a really important thing that not enough companies are doing, one of them is an ethics core that says this is what's allowed and what's not allowed. It's like, because I was talking to the lead engineer, the whole team is based in Haifa in Israel. And I said, it's like, what? Was it not allowed to do? I was like, well, for example, I can't call someone a Nazi, right? That's explicitly disallowed in a set of hard-coded rules. But there's other things that essentially provides governance on what the machine is allowed to say.
It's too bad that same rule doesn't apply to CNN. Right?
The rule that applies to everybody. I would love to just put chips in people's heads personally.
You're a Nazi. I don't like what you say. Nazi.
Hurt my feelings.
You're Hitler, literally.
When you look at the way Facebook operates, though, Facebook operates without a strong sense of ethics, right? When you look at how
Google said the same.
Understatement of the year.
Which one does operate with ethics?
Not enough of them.
Not enough of them,
and it's not something that is baked into their culture. When you look at the way Facebook has designed its business, they said we want to optimize for engagement. We want you to engage, have quote meaningful conversations, right? Which is just code for just having flame
We want
wars.
to piss people off so that we can get them all angry and fired up.
Exactly, and that's what the algorithm did. It's like the genie in the bottle from Aladdin, right? You get what you ask the machine to do. You get exactly what you ask the machine to do. If you didn't think through the consequences, the machine will still do it. So Facebook's algorithm says, let's make people angry and afraid all the time. Look, magically our engagement numbers are sky high. Yes, and you're also just undermining civilization. No one said that we should use multi-objective optimization. Yes, optimize for engagement, but also optimize for someone's happiness, right? Yeah,
optimize for civility.
Optimize for, and these are things that did not go into their algorithm.
Can't we all just get along?
Yes, we can.
Which is why those little subpods are going to be so important. Because
exactly.
That's going to bring that happiness back. It's like, here are people who I like to engage with, who make me happy, who are not a bunch of assholes. These are my peoples.
Yes, except that there is the whole fishbowl effect right now of believing, like the Wall Street Journal's red feed blue feed study, which is fascinating. It gets worse because now you can have a group of people who are so self-referential that their echo chamber continues to drift further and further off of what quote the norm is, right?
Well, filter bubble for sure.
You'll have much stronger filter bubbles because now nothing that doesn't belong in the bubble will get in, right? It's not someone will not accidentally share something in to that bubble. It will be everything that you want to see, hear, and believe, and that's it.
So politics are going to get worse.
Politics will get much worse. Politics is going to get much worse.
Okay, so as we look at all this tech and we're like, this is cool and this is cool and this is creepy, but it's still so damn cool that we can do this. It's inevitable we're going down this road. So I know we like to be optimistic, but do you think that what we've seen from the visions of the science fiction film and book writers, is that where it's actually going?
I think it'll be much worse.
Oh, great. Well, this is the last episode.
Yeah.
So, like, on one end...
I'm digging my bunker right now.
On one end, there's the Star Trek future, right? Where we all fly around in a magical spaceship that does whatever we want, and we have no food or poverty, no poverty of any kind, because the machines can do it all, right? On the other end, that people think is the worst outcome is Skynet and the Terminator movies, the machines that kill us all. Neither one's likely. What is likely to happen based on human nature is there was a fantastic kind of a niche movie called Elysium with Matt Damon in a number of years ago, where you basically had an extremely small cadre of really, really, really rich people who lived in a floating space station above the Earth and had access to all the amazing technology. And then you had a largely irradiated, unlivable Earth where people lived to be like 30 years old because it was a contaminated wasteland. When you look at the environment we're in now and things like income inequality, we are already 3/4 of the way there. We just don't have the magic space station, right? But when you look at, for example, the scandals just recently about people buying crazy ways into universities and stuff like that, we're at that point. We're at that point of massive inequality at a societal scale. And typically one of two things happens. Either the people who are in charge, there's some dynamic that changes, the Great Depression or something, where it relevels the playing field. Or there's a massive war of some kind where we kill off a whole bunch of people. Or there's a revolution and a whole bunch of people get beheaded. Paris, 1789. Any one of those outcomes is potentially likely because as climate change gets worse and as our draw on resources gets worse, there'll be more and more people with less and less. AI can solve for some of that in the sense of it can reduce things like human rights abuses. If you have kids working in a sweatshop assembling, clothing, cool, make robots do that. The kids are no longer being forced to work 18-hour days, but the kids now also have no form of income because the machines have taken that work away. Debate, wherever it is in your ethics spectrum, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But it means that we as a civilization need to give some serious thought as to what constitutes work. How do people make a living? Things like universal basic income have to be a serious discussion topic because there will not be enough jobs. There just will not.
Because it's service economy.
Because the machines can do most of it, right? Look at the amount of money and time and effort that companies like Uber are putting into self-driving vehicles. Why? Because they don't want to pay humans to do it. Right, and no autonomous vehicle is going to sexually harass a passenger. Right, the machine will just do as it's told.
Everybody was like, "Oh, we need to raise the minimum wage to $15." McDonald's goes, "Okay, well, here's all of our new kiosks."
Exactly.
Right?
And you look at the Momentum Machines is doing with their burger machine. Their burger machine creates a $6 burger that custom made the way you want it, plus fries and a beverage. And there's not a human. A human stops like once a day to reload the supplies and make sure it's clean.
Is that the name of the burger joint? Momentum?
That's the name of the company that makes them.
Okay.
There's one in San Francisco.
Okay.
But these are real considerations. Like, at what point do you have to say, okay, we need to figure out how to have a better system for helping people live, because there will not be jobs for a huge chunk of the population.
Yeah. Joel and I, we've had conversations around that on Bad Crypto, right? Because it feels like the universal basic income is going to be some sort of cryptocurrency.
It would make sense for it to be that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's one of the, we'll tie the story in with Bad Crypto. But so we created a coin called Bad Coin, right? And Bad Coin is essentially is a blockchain that can be mined on any computer. The worse your computer, the better you can mine. If you're on a whole stack of ASIC computers in a warehouse in China, then you're de-incentivized, you're throttled down, you're not going to get the reward as if you had a Pentium 1 in grandma's house. You're going to have a better chance of gaining that reward. So it's a blockchain, multi-chain built on 5 blockchain algorithms. So based on which device you have, you connect to that particular type of the chain, and that determines your difficulty in being able to mine. The idea being, anybody can mine, third world countries, anybody can mine, and the code is open source. So the thought is that a third world country or developing country government could literally take this and say, hey, use your computers, mine this, here's your basic universal income, because the crypto is created out of thin air. So we
get your own basic income, mine Bad Coin.
Yeah, mine Bad Coin, call it whatever you want. You can fork off a Bad Coin and call it whatever. So that was sort of the idea, is level the playing field when it comes to crypto, because we don't want these big, huge miners to be able to have all the abilities to mine all the crypto. And then Joel sent me over a little video snippet when you guys were talking about
the one laptop per
The
child.
one laptop. You want to talk about that, because I find that
project?
so interesting.
So that was Nicholas Negroponte's attempt to make a sub $100 laptop for the developing world, and they made and deployed 3 million of them, of which I think 2.5 million ended up in developing nations. And it's fascinating because it's a little self-contained, very cheerful looking computer. 256 megabytes of RAM, like a 2 gigabyte solid state drive, and some ARM processor, a super lightweight ARM processor, like 800 megahertz, I think was the maximum it went. But it was designed for kids in like Mongolia to be able to connect to each other. It has mesh networking built in, so they can connect to each other in a classroom, right? That is the ideal computer for mining on a cryptocurrency where performance is throttled down, because those things you can have, like, you imagine having one of those in a village somewhere. If that village could mine $10,000 worth of currency in a day, guess what? That village can now have running water and food.
Potentially, yeah. So it's exciting.
So basically what we need is an Ubuntu miner, which I would imagine exists already. It's Linux, right? So, because what you mine Badcoin with, it's not mining code developed for Badcoin. It's mining software that you just attach to the node, right? I think that's how it works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people were talking about spinning up Raspberry Pis and connecting them to a VPN and creating creating a whole network of them, which that has been thought of to dethrottle that too. So that's the whole idea, is to not allow those kinds of things. But people are going to be like, ooh, they're going to try to break the system, and we're like, hey, go for it, because let's figure out where the vulnerabilities are so we can fix them.
If Badcoin works, we're going to need superhero capes. Badcoin saves the world. Chris, this has been fantastic, and really appreciate you coming on. Any optimistic thoughts that you can leave us with?
If you get started using machine learning and artificial intelligence within your company today, meaning you start learning how it works, you start learning which partners and vendors to work with and things, you will achieve multiples on your return on investment of it, and hopefully be as successful as you possibly can be, and get to the point like we were talking earlier with the conductor example. If your ambition exceeds your ability, the machines can help make up for some of the ability now. And in the near term, in the next 5 or 10 years, that will continue to be the case. So I have significant optimism for the way people will use technology in the short term to allow them to actually express themselves, to reach that potential. I can't play music, but if I can tell the machine what I want it to make, and it does the heavy lifting, I can make the kind of music I want to hear.
I want the machines that when I do karaoke to make me sound like Michael Bublé.
I mean, that's just auto-tune.
Oh, dude, it exists already.
Yeah.
Let's go karaoke.
I want to ask this before we wrap up. So, do you have like some online videos or tutorials and sort of showing people, because you're using a lot of different tools, a lot of which are open source. I've sat through sessions with you, and you've shown how to do some of that live on stage, but still some of it kind of like, wow, that was interesting, but I didn't see it enough to be able to do it. Have you made videos, or are there some resources where you would recommend people go to learn how to do this cloud computing and cloud, machine learning and stuff? Because you said this, you have your company's Trust Insights. You said, I have 3 employees. I probably won't need more than 3 employees because the machines do all the work. How are those doing all the work? Is there a way, like, how can somebody start today and start figuring it out?
If you want to start today and you don't want to pick up coding, because AI is part coding, part mathematics, and then part architecture.
There's no part of it that's like French fries or chocolate cake?
No.
All right, I'm out.
If you want,
3 tweets and a Facebook status, Joel. And you can
take a look at IBM's Watson Studio. It's a drag and drop environment where you can start to play with a lot of the different modules. You still need to learn what the blocks do, but you don't have to write the code anymore. Now you drag and drop the blocks and put your data in and start to learn and experiment. Like, I have my Google Analytics results for the last year. We put that in. Well, okay, here's a pile of blocks that I could play with. Which one should I? Let's try this auto modeler. You drop that on, and it'll spit out something. Oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And I want now let's refine it. So we drop in a refiner block and things. So it gives you the ability to experiment with the stuff. You can't break it. You can't foul things up. So it's a good testing ground to start to learn some of this.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be some great video tutorials for Trust Insights to start showing people how some of that stuff works. Maybe under the hood.
It would be, but that's going to go away in probably the next year or two, because as auto AI comes in, you say it will get to the point of like this should be rolling out by the end of the quarter. You take the data set, you drop it into auto AI, and it will do all the heavy lifting to even figure out the modeling, and then you just say, okay, that looks good. Deploy it to Watson OpenScale. OpenScale monitors it. It says, hey, a new model is available that performs better than the one you picked. Do you want to switch?
We're not going to be needed for anything. Even like the podcasts, AI will just be the
Welcome
host.
to the Bad Bot Podcast.
And it's a
I'm
TravBot.
Bot 143297.
No, you're the TravBot 4000.
TravBot 4000.
The next generation. All the links to the articles and topics discussed are in the show notes, badboysofTech.com/010, including links to ChristopherSPenn.com, his site marketingovercoffee.com, his Twitter account, and trustinsights.ai. Chris, thanks again, brother.
Thank you for having me.
It was good to have you.
It was.
To be had. And thanks to all of you for listening to this episode. Pass it on. Tell a friend. Tell a friend they're about.
You only have 50 years to live.
And you're going to have fewer
We're
friends.
all going to die. Get them in your pod now.
Please subscribe, review, rate, share all that good stuff. And until next time, stay bad.
The Bad Boys of Tech.